Working closely with both international and domestic banks in executive search, there has been a big shift recently that is impacting the talent market. International banks are placing increasing pressure on domestic firms when it comes to competition for talent in Australia and New Zealand. The number of international banks setting up locally or expanding their offerings has grown in the last couple of years and accelerated since the Royal Commission. They sense an opportunity. There are newcomers to the ANZ market, as well as some banks returning for the first time since the GFC. Understandably, there is uncertainty in the local banks post-Royal Commission. The flow-on of expected slower growth due to new regulation will be an issue, and the ongoing impact this will have on revenue allows the international banks to be more competitive on the pricing of deals. The internationals look at the return on equity in ANZ as very attractive. They are targeting the corporate and institutional markets, specifically the natural resources and infrastructure industry, which is expected to drive growth over the next 20 years, and is an area they have extensive experience in from Europe and Asia. In my team's 20 years in the ANZ market, candidates have never been more open to joining international banks. They have become the preferred option, especially in the big ticket area of banking. I've noticed an upswing in the past 12 months of senior candidates from the leading domestics reaching out to see what opportunities may be available with the revered internationals. The international banks offer competitive salary and market-leading bonuses, but perhaps most appealing to candidates is the relative career stability compared to what we have seen within the domestic banking markets over the last 5 years. The smaller teams at the internationals are more agile, and the culture seems to benefit from that. Historically, the impression of the culture in certain international banks was less than favourable, but there have been drastic changes made as they see the value of an improved culture adds in attracting talent. Several of my clients have addressed this issue over the years and is paying dividends as they are now the employers of choice. The international banks look for people that want to progress quickly, assuming responsibility from a junior level and can work independently. Their organisational structures are usually different, allowing people to move up the ladder when they are ready to, as opposed to the typical domestic setup of having to do a fixed amount of years as a grad, analyst and associate levels. The business unit rotation system of domestic banks do have their positives and give more junior employees varied experience, but it does hurt them a little as well, with high performers who are less patient, less willing to wait around for their next opportunity. In the sectors I work across, people are usually expected to be more rounded bankers. Origination, execution, financial modelling and portfolio management are all part of the remit at certain banks. At domestic banks, these are usually split out, with people having specialisations, and the same can be said with market sectors. Meanwhile, at a smaller international bank, you may have access to natural resources, telco, real estate and cash flow lending, all within one department. The domestics usually have a separate team for each area, which limits the scope of what deal flow these people get to look at and what areas they can specialise in. The domestics clearly have an advantage over the internationals in the length of the hiring process. Domestics are nimble, and this gives them the opportunity to act quickly to make an offer. Traditionally, the internationals have taken longer during the interview process due to their regional heads of the business having to sign off on any hires. Conflicting time zones and packed schedules mean finding a suitable window for a video call or for someone to fly in for an in-person interview is difficult. That aside, the momentum is in the international bank's favour, with a recent Australian Financial Review article stating that Australian assets with international banks rose by 11% in 2018, while the domestic bank assets rose by a more subdued 3% in the same period. Until the ripple effects of the Royal Commission are settled and stability returns, I believe it will remain a challenge for the domestic banks to tip the balance of the talent market back in their favour.